In the name of the one holy and undivided Trinity, amen. Amen. Have a seat. Okay, so the sermon, as it's written, has two things of note that get woven together. But I would also just like to say, is Simon Peter married? Where does his mother-in-law come from? What's we never hear. Where's the wife? Is she dead? What's happening there? Anyway. Where is she? Anyway, okay. So just keep that little question. Maybe we will figure that out. The real sermon. Two things of note. The first is that I'm endlessly fascinated by the number of readings we get, particularly in Mark's telling of Jesus' life, where demons and unclean spirits immediately recognize Jesus. In today's reading, the sentence we get is, they knew him. They knew him. The demons recognize Jesus more readily sometimes than the other people who are following him. It took Peter, possibly married Peter, months, maybe years, we're not clear on the timeline, to figure out what the demons already knew, that this man is also something else. When I allow myself a more cynical train of thought, I try to imagine what would happen to Jesus today in a world of talking heads and blowhard pundits and political mudslinging. My hunch is that people would take this extraordinary ability Jesus had with unclean spirits and unclean people and use it against him. They'd probably say, well, look who knows him. Sick, low-life scum. Good, respectable, clean people seem kind of iffy about him. The demons seem to know who he is. I suspect there'd be a little guilt by association and a little suspicion about who he really is. Can't possibly be God, right? 2, what is Jesus doing when he prays? If he's God, who's he praying to? Do you feel puzzled about this? I occasionally feel puzzled about this. What's he praying about? Doesn't he already know everything? Is it just a show? This, if we go too far down this path, runs us right into one of the fundamental dilemmas of one of the most fundamental tenets of Christianity, that Jesus is both fully God and fully human. And most of us tend to have to err on one side or the other of that. The both and is too much. And on a little bit of a tangent, I think the both and is designed to be a little bit of a too much for us. We are Western thinkers. We like algorithms. We like things that make sense. We like 50% plus 50% equals 100%. Not, 100% plus 100% also equals 100%. That's hard for us. So I think the doctrine is actually designed to break us a little, to break our brains out of that hyperlogical thinking and help us to give in a transformed way to this truth at the heart of reality that can only be glimpsed in story and metaphor and song. Back to this action of Jesus praying, there's something reassuring to me, and I think probably to many people who provide care as a daily part of their work. Nurses and therapists and EMTs and home care workers and parents, that even Jesus, after an intensive time of healing, needs some silence. In the witching hour of the cold, dark desert, even God cannot go hard for several days in a row without needing something that is only met there in the chill of the empty land. And I have a suspicion that what Jesus is doing out there is part of what makes working with the demons possible. Now, I'm not a huge fan of floopy armchair psychology, so I'm not here to analyze Jesus. I like data. But what the data shows us in every kind of human interaction, from one-on-one to families, to churches, to governments, is that a little self-knowledge goes a long way. Does Jesus have a capacity for evil? I think so. To be wholly human, he would have needed the precise capacity that all of us have for harm. He didn't choose to act on it, but the capacity was there. He wasn't cruising being God. He wasn't Superman. He wasn't a super muscly hero who blasted all the evil he saw out of the way. He obviously wasn't invulnerable, as we see in how he died. He was vulnerable. He just wasn't afraid. Or not afraid enough to let it stop him from doing the work. We say that courage is just fear that said its prayers, right? Jesus can talk to the demons because he knows them. He is them. He's not better. He's not this moral paragon condescending to their level. Living within himself are the exact same places of self-doubt and fear and anxiety and brokenness that every other person lives with. His remarkable capacity was to know it, acknowledge it, refuse to act, and to not let that make him arrogant or morally superior to everyone else he met. When he met those demons in those people, he knew he was seeing himself. And even after he is killed, what do we say? The first thing he does, he descends to the dead. He was not afraid of what he would find there. He had already met it at home. Even Mother Teresa said, if you don't recognize the Hitler inside, you're a very dangerous person. There is something ultimately healing about this process of deep self-knowledge and of deep self-knowledge of any human organization, a marriage, a family, a church, a city. Many times we are tempted, anytime we're in a group, to whitewash our history, to scrub it clean of wrongdoing and strife, the times we fought, the times we made the wrong decision, the times we as individuals fell down and dated that person way too long. The time we spent a bunch of money on something we shouldn't have. The times we discriminated. The times we believed things that we don't believe anymore. But this is actually one of the most healing things we can do as individuals and collectively. It can seem counterintuitive to dwell on our sin in order to get better. I mean, we live in a pretty relentlessly positive American culture. But I don't think it's dwelling. I think it's one of the most powerful statements of our humanity, is that we are bound together in fallenness. We share it among the great variety of experiences of the people in this room. Every single one of us has done something at some point that was colossally stupid, that we halfway hope no one else in this room will ever find out about. But why not? It's part of our story. It's already in the room, in our bodies and our histories. It's part of our learning. It's part of what made us what we are now. When we do that, we can reach out. It gives us some freedom to extend our hands in common humanity with other people and their uncleanness and their demons and the places where they are frightened and sick. It's authentic. It's warm. It's real. So maybe this week you could try sitting with yourself in a quiet, dark place and think about one thing that you've done that you still feel so secretive and guilty about. Could you try for a few minutes, not forever, offering yourself a little forgiveness, a little lightness, a little ease, maybe even a little amusement for that moment of ignorance. It might be scary. It might be too much to do for more than 5 minutes. But just see what happens and what comes up. Maybe try to remember Jesus in the cold dark of the late night and early morning, in the desert air, surrounded by the scuffling of little night creatures. Because whatever it is in you, know that he can hold it. He has been there.